Okay, how many 5 to 9s? No 5 to 9s. How many 10s to 13s? No 10s to 13s. That's very interesting. Okay, I think it's the first time nobody in these two categories. Okay, 14 to 17. There's a few of them, right? Maybe 10, 14 to 17. 18 to 21. Lots of 18 to 21s. Okay, high time control. 22 to 25. Bunch. Okay. So heavily skewed to the right. Okay,
if we asked you this question at home, would you be right here?
Totally the other way, right?
Probably over here.
That essentially is the PwC effect. This is a deadline-driven firm, okay? And if you've been around here for a while, you've figured out, I got to be here. Meetings start and end on time, I got to deliver. At home, it's a different story. Now, look at where the Latino cultures are. They're more on this side, low time control. So on this one, at least at work, we're not playing true to type, which is great, okay, because you've seen the culture here. But the Latino cultures tend to be lower time control. I can tell you, Indian culture, we talk about Indian Standard Time. I'm sure we talk about Latino time too. By the way, I happen to be married to a Puerto Rican. My son is half Indian, half Puerto Rican. So I'm very familiar with Latino time, okay? The party starts and the music starts and the food is there. And it ends when the music stops and the food is gone, okay? That's the way it goes. Well, and I've been to other parties where it start on time at 9:30, get out of my house, I need my house back. Okay, so it's a very different orientation. So look at these characteristics. By the way, look at the US is very high time control. Okay, very high time control in general. High time control, beginning precisely on time, important. Meetings begin and end on time. Okay, lateness is a sign of incompetence. You're not thinking of it that way, but somebody's looking at that and saying this person is late, even 5 minutes late. Hey, there's a problem here. That's a micro signal that you're sending without even realizing it. That's contributing to your brand in these cultures. Okay, all activities planned and scheduled. Excuses for tardiness not accepted. Plans expected to be sacrosanct. Project deadlines more rigid. Okay, over on this side, schedule adherence is low. Buffer time required. Competence not judged by time. Extended meetings required, harmony more important, less scheduling in advance, plans change often and a lot, project deadlines are flexible. Again, it's not that people are focused on time, it's fixed versus fluid. Okay, folks on this side, okay, tend to have a more expansive view of time. And so it's not nothing to blame, it's just the way people think, it's polychronic time, okay. So for example, I was dealing with my paisan in India. If I had a deadline for May, I tell them I need the stuff in April. Because I know there's going to be more likelihood, so you kind of adjust for the cultural nuances there. Juan Roberto?
Yeah, and here's one where the group, and just the survey that you all took on yourself, where you see that the acculturation piece really coming in Manny's question. Do you see yourself functioning that same way at home? And I think the response was, well, maybe not. We're maybe a bit more tolerant on the time issue at home, but being able to adapt and understand what is valued and what is prized at PwC. So I mean, we actually as a culture view time in a very interesting manner. I mean, this is the whole notion of, do we work to live? Do we live to work? Are we pursuing passions? Are we pursuing pensions? Just our relationship with time and space. But we do tend to be present focused, so we have, we look at the past, our heritage. It's something that we look as the basis to build on. And for many Latinos, kind of the future is a little bit unpredictable, so we tend to focus on the present. I used to hear growing up this refrán that says that si tu mal tiene remedio, ¿para qué te quejas, right? If you're sick and there's a cure, well, don't complain about it. Y si no tiene remedio, ¿de qué te apuras, right? And if it doesn't have a cure, what are you worried about? So that was, again, a very a very cultural way on how to look at time. But this actually does play in our favor. This this present focus allows us to hear this. I mean, this is one, the tendency to staying calm in the time of urgency. We're focused on it. It's right now. We're on top of it. We'll get it done. We also have the idea que lo prometido es deuda, right? We promise to deliver. We're going to deliver. So these are good values that we bring to the workplace and are well valued. But again, are we completely in line at both at home, and are we completely aligned at work? And Coach Lou Holtz, who coached Notre Dame and is on television on the football shows, had this philosophy of win, W-I-N, what's important now, and the idea that when you're there, when you're focused, that's the most important thing that you need to execute on, right? What you're doing at that time. Manny?
Why are deadlines important in PwC? Clients, right? Client demands. What else? Regulations. So you're in a profession that forces you to be deadline driven. I will say one thing. Have you heard a thing called false deadlines? You think that exists at PwC? Huh? Have you ever asked a client, have you ever said to the client, CFO, I need this report by Friday, only to find out that Friday night he's leaving on a 1-week vacation and won't be back to see it, right? And so I think that one thing to help your team better, and so make sure it's not a false deadline. There are certain things you can't, but deal with those kind of things, okay? Because some of them are false deadlines, okay? I think one of the key things, is that, on-time delivery, okay, is very, very important. But here's a key one: speed with quality in execution. How quickly can you get to something, okay? All right, that's a real skill at PwC, okay? But here's another one: grace under pressure. Do not allow, okay, a deadline to put you in a situation that's going to lead you to make a bad decision. I remember when I was managing partner of the Tucson office, and I called our regional manager and a regional managing partner, and I told him, I said, I needed the client wanted a proposal, and I needed approval from him, and I said to him, by the way, I don't want to pressure you, but we need this by 8 in the morning. And he says, Manny, I'm immune to pressure. I'm immune to pressure. I do not make decisions when I'm pressured, okay? Now, he made a decision, but he was trying to tell me something, okay? Don't try to put me in a situation that if I don't have all the facts, I'm not going to make a decision, okay? But that's also very, very important, okay? Grace under pressure. We talked about it, be on time. I know that Suri and I joke about this all the time, but I tell him, Suri, on time means 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before. That's on time. You're almost late if you show up at, on time, okay? And it's really bad if you really show up late, okay? So my expectation, and it's interesting. I don't know about, my son's a little confused because if I tell him be ready at 10:30, he will be ready at 10:30, okay? He won't be ready at 10:29, okay? He won't be, and he won't be late, but at 10:30. So some people, that's almost as frustrating as being late, right? When I'm always on time, 10, 15 minutes early, and he's saying, Dad, you said 10:30, okay? But get used to landing a plane on a short runway. You don't always have a lot of time, okay? And you have to make decisions and do things. So you don't always have the leisure of having a lot of time, at PwC or with your clients. So you got to learn to speed with quality, okay? Go ahead, Tony.
Sorry, Manny.
No,
The
go
other thing I would say, too, is from a PwC standpoint, many of you will probably be working with different Latino clients over the point of your career, taking advantage of language and cultural heritage and the like. And when it comes to clients, they can feel free to miss deadlines way more than we can feel free to miss deadlines. So one of the skills that you're going to need to develop as well is not only that you need to be on time, but you need to be on time even if they're late. So building in extra time into your projections on how long it's going to take. Asking for documents a bit earlier than you might actually need them. so that way you have a possibility of delivering. They won't excuse you for being late, even if they're the reason that you are late. So you need to be thinking about the culture that you're working with as well, because while we may have changed over time due to the PwC way, due to the American way, or some combination therein, your clients may not have. So make sure you're thinking about that as well.
Yeah. If you're late 10 minutes every time and you say it's the traffic, you think that's going to go over real well the third or fourth, fifth time? You got to be more creative with your reasons, okay? Definitely, okay. But obviously, leave earlier, right? Okay. Why do you think the toughest thing at the ALPFA convention is to control time? Why do you think that is? Toughest thing to do. Why? Too many Latinos in one place. You're right. But what does that mean? What does that mean? Why do you think it's the hardest thing? Suggestions. I mean, traveling. Some people are late. You know what the biggest thing is? They're all hugging and kissing each other. It seems like they haven't seen each other like, you know, in 1 week, and it looks like it's been 2 years, right? I mean, the relationship. I mean, I really have to put a lot of thought into how do I control, you know, these things, because I know you just cannot. Even if you say 10-minute break, what's a 10-minute break? It's a 25-minute break. No one ever takes, you know. You just can't control it. So we really have to devise. I remember we used to, you know, I know Latinos and Latinas love soup. Right? If they owe soup or something. We used to have it at our convention. And then one time I was telling them, the head guy there, I said, serve the soup. You know, we wouldn't serve it. And why not? Because soup gets cold, right? So I had to wait until everybody sat down for them to serve the soup, okay? So now at the ALPFA conventions, you will never see soup, right? Right? In fact, I tried to work it out. Because all the hugging and kissing, I had to constrict the time for eating. So now, if you go to an ALPFA convention, there's 2 things that are preset, right? No soup, the salad, and the dessert. Just look at that. Next time you go to a convention, look at that. All other conventions, they're you know, clanging, thinking of this. Not at the ALPFA convention, because I got to make up for all this other stuff, you know. But Suri.
This is the original soup Nazi right here, right before Seinfeld. No soup for you. Okay, so change tolerance. Evolutionary versus revolutionary. How comfortable are you with change? Take the 5 questions, please. 18 to 21. Lots of folks there, right? So 12 to 12 people. 14 to 17. That's about 12, 15 people. 10 to 13. Okay. 5 to 9, nobody. So really skewed over here. Okay, a few folks here, a lot of folks here, and a lot of folks here. So again, skewed on the right, high change tolerance. If folks were here on the left, it'd be lower change tolerance, more focus on stability, constancy, not that comfortable with rapid change. By the way, that's where a lot of the Latino cultures tend to be, low to moderate change tolerance. There is a premium on stability in a lot of Latin American. Things don't change as fast. There's a sense of comfort that comes with that, okay? These are all subliminal things, so you may not even realize that you have it, but it's there, okay? The US tends to be relatively high change tolerance country, okay? And obviously Australia and Canada even higher, but the US tends to be more rapid growth. You can see some of the characteristics of low versus high change tolerance. You can read through that. Let me ask you just an instinctive guess. Where do you think PwC would be on this grid? High or low? Tends to be high. Tends to be high. I would tend to agree with you because, you know, part of what you sell is gray matter, is expertise. And so one of the distinctive sustainable competencies of PwC is that PwC changes faster than the environment around it. The minute PwC is slower, it's a problem. Okay, clients pay you for knowing more than they do. You sell your gray matter. And so it's very important to be flexible and adapt very quickly to change. And that's a little bit different from the cultural, Latino cultural norm. Wonderful.
Thank you, Suri. Yeah, and here's a place where all the research indicates that we favor consistent. We like things that are constant. We don't like change. We're more reluctant to change. But when I looked at the responses, really, that in this group being very favorable to change, it really doesn't surprise me. I mean, how many in this room, raise your hands if you were not born in the United States? Okay, hold on. Keep your hands up. Okay, and then if your parents weren't born here. Okay, put your hands down. So you see, like the folks, if we're saying that in Latin countries, people like things that, comfortable, the same, no change, it's all good. So those are the people that stayed home. Those are the people that didn't leave the country. We have the saying, right? Even in English, there's a saying, better the devil that you know than the devil that you don't. Es mejor malo por conocido que bueno por conocer. It's a bad situation. It's okay if we grow to expect it. We know how to handle it. We know how to deal with it. But when you think about it, there's a DNA piece that runs through us as Latinos, and especially as Latinos here in the United States, to say, look, it wasn't acceptable for me. I wanted something different. And for many of you, you took that step, a step that said you had to say goodbye. You had to say goodbye to that constant, that consistent, the devil that you knew in order to follow a dream. And so those of you that took that step, that had to say goodbye, that had to say goodbye to a way of life that you knew to follow that dream and encounter the unknown, that's risk-taking. So any study you see on traits of leadership, there's, leaders are visionaries. Leaders are folks that are willing to take risks. Leaders are folks that will communicate and share that and engage other people to join that risk. So when you consider those of you that took the step to leave your country and come here, and all the scary that implied, or your family, that they made a decision to say goodbye and say, I'm going to pursue a dream. There's something better for me over there. When you consider the stories that you hear about folks that have died in the desert along the U.S.-Mexican border, the folks that have loaded a group of people onto a raft and headed off into the dead of night, not knowing where they're going to land or if they're going to make it. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that those are very strong leadership traits, and these are things that we need to be very proud of as a part of who we are, and we need to put them to work for us here. Manny?
Yeah. I used to, sometimes I start when I give leadership training, I start by something and I tell everybody, I want you to remember this, and I say, you have to be smarter than a cockroach, okay? And I say, you got to be smarter than a cockroach. And I go on and I tell my story, and I go about halfway through, I say, remember, you have to be smarter than a cockroach. All right? And I keep going. And then I come to the end and I basically say, on the way here to the office, I looked out and I didn't see any dinosaurs. It was amazing there were no dinosaurs out here. Okay, now why do you think there were no dinosaurs? No, they're extinct, right? Why are the dinosaurs extinct? They couldn't adapt to change. But those damn cockroaches, pesticide, whatever it is, they've been here for thousands and thousands of years, the cockroach. Okay? You just can't get rid of them because cockroaches adapt. All right? And when I say you have to be smarter than a cockroach, change is going to happen. You have to plan for change. That's the part you have to be smarter than the cockroach. Okay? Be adaptable, but plan it. It's going to happen. People tell me what was the toughest decision I've ever made, life, and I think it was really right after 9/11, and our convention in Las Vegas. Did you go to that? Was on 9/25. 9/25. All right. So on 9/11, what are we doing? We're calling everybody in New York and D.C. and Pennsylvania to make sure everybody was okay. The next day, it's signed. Oh my God, we have a convention in about 2 weeks. No planes flying, right? Took 8 days for a plane to take off, okay? People call companies not knowing what their travel policies were and everything else, okay? We had to make a decision. 9/11 was a Tuesday, I believe. I think Wednesday was when I realized I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision on Thursday morning. And to go through with a convention or not, okay? And this was when we were basically going to, tell everybody our new name. We used to be called the American Association of Hispanic CPAs, and that was the convention. We were going to go with the Association of Latino Professionals in Finance and Accounting, and we had all this momentum. We were growing and everything else, and I had to make a decision with limited facts. Okay, all right. I did follow Bush's, he says, don't let these tourists, interfere with business. Okay. But I did, but I also wanted to be a leading organization to basically set an example. We were the only convention that did not cancel in Vegas. I had to drive to Vegas because no planes were flying on Friday because I had some last minute things to do. And I told my wife, we're staying at Paris. I don't know where it is, but I'll be able to see it, okay? Right? Well, that day was the day of prayer in Vegas. All the lights in Vegas were off. Imagine Vegas with no lights and nobody on the sidewalk. And I think you remember, Liz, I don't know, Tony, did you go to that one? No. But I'm going to tell you, we owned the hotel, Bally. Everybody that was gambling was all ALPFA people. That was it. There was no one in Vegas. But, sometimes you have to take risk, and you have to with limited information. And leaders learn to do that, okay? Leaders are not adverse to, but they take strategic risk. They really are good at, by the way, if you waited to have all the information, what would happen in a competitive environment? You lose out. Why?
Someone else already made the decision.
Exactly. Someone else took advantage of a risk, okay? They took it and they ran with it. And so leaders learned how to take risk, okay? And another thing is leaders have to make decisions, right? Timely decisions. How do you become a good decision maker? Anybody? How do you think you become a good decision maker? Take a guess. Yes, go ahead. I couldn't see you.
By making a lot of decisions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. By making a lot of decisions. That's how you become a great decision maker. Okay? So don't shy away from decision making. All right? How do you learn to lead? Lead! Right? That's how, really simple. If you want to be a leader, lead. Great skill levels that PwC, look at for people. People they can make decisions, they can lead, and it's okay to take risk. Learning to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, by the way, is real important because you're never there, right? Do you think PwC thinks that they're there and they're stopping to learn and grow and continue to be relevant? Absolutely not. To them, you're always trying to improve PwC. I'm sure 5 years from now, you will see nuances at PwC because they've learned how to get comfortable without being uncomfortable. We can go into Suri.
So on the change management piece, what I found is even better than managing change is driving change. Then you know exactly what's going to happen because you are driving it. So I encourage you to think about how you can not just react and respond to change, but how can you drive change. Perfect example of that is ALPFA Institute. ALPFA Institute was a gleam in Manny's eye 2 years ago when nobody was thinking about professional development organizations like ALPFA launching an institute. The entire collaboration with Walton College, all from here. We got to do this, passion around it, made a fast decision to move faster than even the board wanted. All of that happened because of that driving change philosophy. Okay? Very, very important. One other point on change management. Goes back to Tony's point before. Just as the time orientation might be different for clients versus PwC, the change management orientation might be different at clients than at PwC. The comfort with change might be lower on the client side than with you. It may become a source of frustration for you. You may want to drive a lot of change in the client organization, but all kinds of internal antibodies come out to resist that change. And so figuring out not just how to be quick internally at PwC and to be comfortable with discomfort at PwC, but how do you drive that in the client organization? Because they are looking to you to be that irritant in the oyster that generates the pearl. So how do you do that without losing the engagement? Okay, that's the skill set that's very important. Okay, here's the last global moderating variable, work importance, vocation versus vacation. Okay, so do the 5 questions again, please. 10 to 13. You got a few more, 10 to 13. That's interesting, okay? 14 to 17. A lot of 14 to 17s, okay. 18 to 21. A couple 18 to 21. And then 22 to 25. Not a lot. So that's very interesting, okay? The group in general is skewed to the left. Low work importance. Want to be on vacation, don't you? I was just kidding, but that's wonderful, okay? Because I think, again, we'll get to PwC in a second and where that is, okay? But I know where this group is. It's more on this side. Work-life balance is very important for you. Look at where these countries are. The Latin American countries tend to be low to moderate. So the group is pretty aligned with the Latino culture. The U.S., high work importance. By the way, the U.S. has moved. 5 years ago, the U.S. was here. And as there's more conversation around work-life balance, we have moved a little bit here, okay? Here still, you see China and Japan, executives in Japan all the time after work will hang out, talk, work at bars. There are little places you can stay right next to work. These folks have houses, homes, and families. They will stay in little cubicles overnight, take a shower, and come back to work in the morning. That's how it is here, okay? Over here, France, Spain, right? 35-hour work weeks, month and a half vacation in France. Siestas in Spain, okay? That's the difference. That's the difference, okay? Now, if you look at the characteristics, okay, between low work importance, high work importance, you can see, okay, low work importance. I'll bet you this defines this group to some degree. Work does not interfere with life. Less likely to relocate for promotion, okay? No work on weekends and evenings, at least that would be the preference, okay? It doesn't happen on tax season, but interviews tend to be modest, success defined by quality of life. Positive environment, very important, integration of personal life and work, win-win negotiations, compatibility prized over goals, influential connections important. On this side, work, very important part of life. There were a few folks that were over here, okay? Willingness to sacrifice for job, extra work expected and accepted. Work success is provided readily, success defined by performance, individual achievement motivator, aggressive negotiations, organizational goals primary, reaching goals important. So think about that, okay? Where do you think PwC is on this grid based upon that? High work importance, high. What would you guys say, Liz and Tony, as to where it is today and where you want to go?
I think that this is one of those areas where, because we're a client service industry, essentially, where the demands for the late nights, the weekends, the unexpected are there. I think more and more as an organization, we're trying to go into, you hear a lot about flexibility, right? And flexibility, and redefining what flexibility means, that it's not, you can work, it's really defining what flexibility means to you. So if you work the late night, does that mean that, you take a day off for the personal things that you need to catch up on? It's defining what's important to you and making the time to do that within the constraints of our clients and what we have to do in a client service industry.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is that if you were to take PwC now and you try to say where we were, we are shifting to the left. Do I think we'll ever shift to the left and be over where Brazil and that? No. We are responsible to our clients. We have to do what they need for it to get done. What we're trying to do as a firm, though, by flexibility and by outsourcing, is to find ways to work more efficient. Are there ways to get the work done, knowing that it might require a late night today that doesn't require a late night tomorrow? So we're trying to find, with your help, creative solutions towards getting us towards the left without sacrificing the client service benefits on the right. And it's a work in progress, and we're going to have some stumbles, but ideally that's where we're trying to go. And with our service centers in Argentina, in Tampa, and India, and other locations, that is really why we're trying to put that in place, to give people more of a sense of balance, but still maintain our client focus.
Great point, Tony. So a wonderful point. Notice the group was here. You all said PwC is probably here. There's a gap between where you are and where the firm is. And so to bridge the gap, think actively. We mentioned, I heard three things coming out of Liz and Tony. One, flexibility goals, and Manny's going to talk more about that. Two, efficiency. Focus on getting more done in a lesser amount of time. And the third thing that was kind of mentioned is technology. How do you leverage technology to do both? Okay, so that's a great point to remember. Juan Roberto.
Yeah, and this is one of the areas that causes Latinos a lot of conflict because of the, you know, the importance of familia and you know, how we feel towards our familia and the time. You know, again, as Suri said, all of these things you'll see fit together. You know, the relationship aspect, but the key part here is the communication. Is the communication that in the workplace, that our what's important at home is communicated, and at home they understand what's important about work. You know, my dad, when he came from Mexico to the United States, was a migrant farm worker. And so Dad used to follow the crops all around the country. And one time was, you know, kind of reflecting on that and said, you know, he said, the reason I did that was so that I could provide for you kids. And so you kids could go to college, and so you wouldn't have to do the kind of work that I did. He said, but I look at you, he says, and you're no different. You're a migrant farm worker too, but you're a migrant farm worker with a tie. That they transfer you to Colorado, you go to Houston, they transfer you to New York. He says, you're all over the place, you know? But the thing on this topic is it's all okay. That in order for me to be the best, you know, son I could be, to be the best husband I could be, to be the best dad I could be the best brother I could be, I had to be the best me I could be. And that was tied, at least for me, to my professional life. So I could be the best with my family if I was the best at work. And sometimes, because of the nature of my work, that involved late nights, weekends, but you know, and there was always a trade-off, and there was oftentimes you may feel this way in working on a team project where you think, oh my God, I'm spending more time with my coworkers than I am with my family, and that sometimes feels bad for us, and it puts us in some uncomfortable discussions sometimes at home, but those only come if we didn't talk about it up front. You know, there otro dicho, right? Que es mejor ponerse colorado una vez que descolorido muchas veces. Better to have the tough discussion up front than kind of be dancing around it all the time. So if I communicate with my family how important they are to me, but how important my profession and my work is to me, my loyalty towards them does not take away me being loyal to my work also. Manny?
Yeah. You know, I think the partners genuinely want to be as flexible as possible within reason. And I think that, I remember in Houston, I was with the FAS group. I used to do a lot of work with attorneys. And you know, attorneys, by the way, are the most disorganized. Everything's a crisis because they only deal with one thing at a time. Okay, and they won't even tell you, well, work on this 2 months ahead of time. No, it all has to take place in a very short period of time. So it was very difficult, but we had this superstar lady that had a little one at home. And she says, here's my deal. I'm gonna work from Monday through Thursday as many hours as you want me to work. But I don't work on Fridays, and I don't work on weekends, and guess what? I don't take calls on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we would go out with the attorneys, and she would tell them this. And you know, everybody learned to work around her schedule, and it didn't impact the team. We just knew we'd get everything between Monday and Thursday. And I'm not saying that everything should be like that, okay, and you can always accommodate, but I think if there's a way, we have an employee that's based in Washington, D.C. that has a little one. We're going to have another one. And she happens to be in sales. And basically, she can't travel. Okay, it's hard to not travel. So we've identified 4 or 5 major clients she can work on with limited travel. And so the rules are a little different, but her expertise is well, you know, we want. And so I guess my point is that if you have a particular, don't leave the firm just because you don't think they'd understand. All right? I mean, talk to them about your special situation and be reasonable about it. Okay? You got to be reasonable. You can't say I can only work 5 hours a week. Okay? You won't have a job, right? But the thing is, be reasonable. But I think focus on finding quality on both professional and personal. Because if you're great and have quality in your personal life, guess what? You come to work with a lot better attitude and a lot better, performance because you're happy with the quality on your personal. So learn to balance that. Be thoughtful and specific about your flexibility goals. Be honest. All right. That concludes the 7 skills, but let me kind of summarize. We went through respect, trust, credibility, and if you remember, we had these 7 areas that we thought you needed to work on. We went into the Latino culture behind it, all right? And remember, a lot of people defer to this, okay? And then we went into how does PwC, think is important on how you act and basically leverage those cultural differences, but still do all of these things, okay? We have further, and I think these are in your workbooks. These things, if you wanted to get anything else. That basically concludes our session. We hope that you really enjoyed it. So 2 things. First of all, if you did make sure that you fill out the evaluations. That's important before you leave. Second of all, if you really liked it, can you tell somebody that you liked it that wasn't here so that next time they'll participate? And then thirdly, please sign up as an Alpha member.